So guys, we all have these messages of shame in our life. And when shame enters the scene, it really does two things. First off, shame produces fear. It's the fear of being seen as not enough, the fear of being less than. And guys, we all have it. At times, we all are fearful, and it makes us want to hide. And the other thing that shame does is shame disconnects. It disconnects us from one another. It disconnects us from our relationship with the Lord. We feel disconnected oftentimes when we're afraid that the things that we're fearful of are being exposed in us. So shame produces fear and it disconnects. And we have to figure out a way to deal with that in our stories. And unfortunately, we often deal with it by mishandling it, by hiding in some way. And I think there's really three ways that we hide. Now, I'm not saying that we only do one of these. What I am saying is that we do all of these. All of us do all of these at different times in our life. The first way we hide is sometimes we hate the shame message that we get in our story, and so we fight. We fight against it. We do everything we can to make sure that nobody will ever see it. So it could come out through drivenness. It could come out through anger. There's all sort of ways that we work and exhaust ourselves to make sure that nobody will ever see the things we're fearful of in our life and the shame that we feel. So we fight it. But sometimes we choose to wear it. This is what I did. Like when I think about my own story, oftentimes I feel like I just kind of put the shame that I felt in my life, I just put it on. And I just wore it. I believed it. I embraced it. And I just wore it like a coat that I was used to. You know, it's those times for me that what I remember is those times where I just kind of faded into the background or played small or just, went passive. Things like speaking up when I felt like I had something important to say, but instead just play it safe, fade into the background, don't make any waves. So sometimes we wear it. The other thing we do is we just avoid it. We avoid it altogether. So that's where addiction comes in most of the time. So it's take another pill, pour another drink, flip on the computer, whatever I need to do to just escape what's going on inside of me. Sometimes when the shame message gets tweaked inside of us through our current circumstances and we feel like we have to hide it, it's easier just to hit the eject button and avoid it altogether. So sometimes we fight it, sometimes we wear it, and sometimes we just avoid it. If I'm honest, I think at times all three of these things that I just talked about, they kind of work. Sometimes the world rewards my drivenness when I'm fighting the shame. Sometimes when I'm wearing my shame and I'm just fading into the background, it can give me this false sense of security. And when I can avoid it, at least I get a few moments of peace in my life. But what I want you to know is that none of that lasts. None of it lasts. And in reality, when we do these things, it kind of gives us this sense of control over our story. But ultimately, control often is just an illusion. Whatever we've used, whatever tactics we've used to handle the shame in our stories, we need to revisit them. And we need to start to understand where these messages came from. As you think about the ways in which you've handled it, what have you done? Have you fought against it? Have you worn it? Have you avoided it altogether? Where has it shown up in your story? So we all live with this core fear, the messages that have been sent to us because of the wounds that we've received. Like, we got to figure out a way to handle that shame, that fear that rises up inside. So what are some of the things that you guys have found in your own story that you've done to handle that wound?
So after my dad shared that he and my mom were going to get a divorce, my relationship with other people changed dramatically. I kept folks at arm's length. I didn't want to get close because I didn't want to deal with the pain of being rejected again. So I hated that feeling of rejection. I fought against it. I was determined not to let that happen again. So what I did, I kept folks at arm's length. I didn't get close. I didn't develop meaningful relationships because I would put myself at risk if I allowed that to happen. And then as I got older, started into my work career, I over-indexed on the work side of things and wanted to succeed. So I worked and worked and worked so I wouldn't have to face the possibility of rejection from an employer.
So one of the messages that I've had in my life is that I'm alone, and it comes from a place of just not really knowing how to deal with what's going on inside of myself and being too afraid to show that to others. So really, I think my response to that is I've owned it and I've worn it, and I've just told myself and believed that I am alone here. And that shows up in areas of needing to perform and rely only on myself so that I don't have to ask others for help. I don't have to rely on other relationships. And it also has just led to a lot of times in my life where I am very much alone and I'm not seeking out relationships or true relationships with others because I'm too afraid of what might happen, and I have to give up control of what's going on inside of me then. And so that has shown up in a lot of places in my life where I chose a college, I joined the Marine Corps, and made a lot of other life decisions without talking to the people that were most important in my life in that time. It has caused a lot of harm and hurt in my relationships.